Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are once again going to head over to Germany. We're going to go to the little town of Aying to the southeast of Munich once again. So we're going to return to visit Privatbrauerei Ayinger, and this is actually going to be the final beer in my kind of German mini-series that I've been doing for you. So we're going to revisit Privatbrauerei Ayinger, and today we are having a taste of the Celebrator Doppelbock, which according to Rate Beer and Beer Advocate, this apparently according to them is the best Doppelbock in the world. So I'm really excited to try this one, and if you've watched my German reviews before, you will know that I really do love German Doppelbock beers. So anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. It will only be 2 or 3 minutes long, but if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, available in the original German and a translated English version as well. There's also a link down there that will take you to my other reviews I've done from Ayinger before. It's the Untappd beer at the moment, but I'm sure I'll add more to that in the near future. And please also like my Facebook page that I've made for the channel, and also feel free to add me as a friend on Untappd as well. Much appreciated for that. But anyway, to tell you about the brewery itself, as I told you, the brewery is from a little town called Aying, which is to the southeast of Munich. It must only be about 50, 60, 70 kilometres away from the city, something like that. But the Aying brewery was founded in 1876 by Johann Liebhardt, who took over his parents' estate that they had bought in the year 1810. But he was assisted in the running of the brewery by his wife Maria, and the pair had really been inspired to open a brewery because of the economic boom in Germany that followed the Franco-Prussian War. And of course this was when the state of Germany that we know today was created. The whole of Germany was unified, and I believe it was Bismarck that did that. But they began constructing their brewery in 1877, and they produced their first beer in February of 1878. And during this time they actually could only brew beer during the winter between September and April, and this was simply due to the fact that at this point in history they didn't have artificial refrigeration like we have now. But the brewery continued to grow due to the development of the railways and telephones and electricity all at the late end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. But Johann passed on the brewery to his eldest daughter's husband, August Zehenmayer, and Johann actually died in 1910, and then August had to go and fight in the First World War. And during the First World War the brewery was run completely by his wife and their young daughters, and due to the rationing of malt the brewery could only brew at about 15% of the full capacity. But when August returned home from the war, the brewery was in trouble due to the economic crisis that hit Germany, and it also suffered from a major fire as well. But they managed to rebuild the brewery buildings, and in the late 1920s the brewery actually regained a good bit of growth by bottling their beer, and it did reach Munich because the brewery invested in a sort of mini fleet of trucks, if you like. So the brewery was growing fairly well throughout the later stages of the 1920s. But in 1936 the brewery was passed on once again to the eldest son of August, and this was Maria and her husband Franz Crescens Inselkammer. And the brewery production lowered during the Second World War. However, France managed to grow the brewery very successfully in the post-war years. The brewery actually bought the Palazzo Hotel in Munich in 1953, and this really helped establish the Ayinger name as a brand name in Munich itself. But they also invested heavily in the infrastructure in the late 1950s and early 1960s. And in 1963 Maria and Franz passed on the brewery to their eldest son Franz Jr., who he'd been trained in business, and he was also trained as a master brewer at the famous university at Weihenstephan, the famous brew school down there that's part of the Technical University of Munich. But his brother Gusto ran the brewery tavern, and Peter ran the Palazzo Hotel in Munich, and under their stewardship the company continued to grow steadily, and it grew very, very well actually. But the brewery celebrated their 100th anniversary in 1978, and the brewery, to mark the occasion, helped establish a local history museum, and they also produced the Jahrhundert beer, which was the very first one I reviewed from Ayinger for you. But since then the brewery has actually completed drilling to find their own water source, which is very, very rich in minerals and helps kind of give you some of the unique flavours you'll get in Ayinger beer. But they also opened a new brewery building in 1999, which is now one of the most technologically advanced breweries in Europe. So anyway, that's your kind of brief history of Privatbrauerei Ayinger. Very, very good brewery. Beers are very highly rated on Rate Beer and BeerAdvocate.com, things like that. Supposed to be really good. The Jahrhundert beer was wonderful, and I'm sure this guy will be the same. Just to list the other beers you can get from these guys, in the regular range you've got the Lager Hell, the Bayerische Pils, Jahrhundert beer, Alt Bayerische Dunkel, Celebrator, which is this one here. This one's a Doppelbock, obviously. There's Kellerbier, Leichebräu Weiss, Bräu Weiss, Urweiss, and also the Radler beer as well. And in their seasonal range, they have Winterbock, Kirtebier, Frühlingsbier, and also Weizenbock as well. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the tasting of this guy itself. So as I told you at the start of the video, this one is a 6.7% German Doppelbock, supposed to be the best Doppelbock in the world. And I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little quick look at the artwork on this one. It's a plain bottle cap on this one, by the way. You can see the little goat. This is the standard thing they come with, the Celebrator ales, but you can see very, very nicely presented. Tells you on the bottom there, it says it's a family tradition in the 6th generation, which, as I've just gone through the history with you there, and it's a Dunkel Bayerische Stark beer, so a dark Bayern strong beer, basically. Yeah, so it looks very nice. It tells you on the back, Privatbrauerei since 1878. I've still got the sticker on there from KaDeWe, which was one of the which was where I bought this beer in Berlin. But it looks very, very nice. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this guy and we'll get on with the tasting. I couldn't find out when this beer was actually released, but it's meant. But as I say, it's supposed to be the best Doppelbock beer in the world. So very much looking forward to trying it. And I have been since I bought it, actually. So yeah, as you can see, it's poured a really nice dark kind of mahogany, slightly rosewood, ebony colour actually. Looks very, very nice. So as you can see in the camera, it's a nice, probably definitely a rosewood kind of ebony colour there. There's a finger of a frothy kind of beigey tan head on it. Looks really nice. There's a bit of a ruby edge to it as well. If you hold it up to the light, you can see some of the ruby edges to it. And there's some small bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head there, and some bigger bubbles just sticking towards the side of the glass. But it looks very, very nice. Very attractive looking beer actually. Doppelbocks always look like very, very nice beer. So let's have a look at the aroma on this one. So as you would expect, nice big dark kind of toasted malt aroma from this one. It's a sort of dark caramel and treacle malt, but there is a bit of a lighter sweetness to it as well, a kind of regular caramel, so there's probably a mix of these dark roasted treacly flavours in here and a bit of the lighter, more sweet caramel. But you've got some German rye bread in the malt base there, and it's a bit toasted as well. I always love the kind of big German rye bread, kind of brown bread malt bases that you find in these beers. There's a good bit of red fruity ester in this one as well. I want to say it's a kind of plummy or raisiny one. It does have a little bit of the more sharp flavours that you would expect from the more plums or raisins. Usually the figgy note is a bit more smooth and a bit more light, if that makes sense. But yeah, should be a very, very nice beer for us to try. But yeah, it has everything you expect. Some nice dark kind of toasted caramel malts, a bit of lighter ones in there as well. Some kind of German rye bread notes as well. There's a bit of a kind of nutty or woody aroma to it as well, but it's kind of drowned out a little bit by these kind of red fruits, the sort of plums and raisins that are coming out of this beer. But overall, very, very nice smelling beer. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this one. So this is the Celebrator Doppelbock from Privatbrauerei Aying in Aying, to the southeast of Munich, Bavaria, Germany. Slanje, Prost. And that's a really nice beer actually, very smooth actually. Yeah, it's really well blended, the flavour in this one, I have to say. It's usually you get a kind of bigger blast from the caramel and the darker elements of the beer, but this one's a lot more subtle and everything just blends together really well. That's the first impression of this beer. But yeah, a nice big dark syrupy malt, some dark treacle or molasses in there, and some lighter kind of caramelly notes as well. You just get the middle of your tongue being blanketed by this German rye bread flavour, a good cereally bready flavour that just blankets the middle of your palate there, and on top of that you're getting a little bit of roasted bitterness, if you like, from the dark syrupy malts and the dark kind of treacle and molasses in there. It's really quite nice actually. But it's a bit toasted too. But what you'll notice is the beer, those dark roasted malts come in a little bit dry, but then the tongue just moistens up a little bit again. It's really quite interesting, this. It's different from a lot of the other Doppelbocks I've tried. Yeah, those kind of sweet caramel and roasted treacle flavours, they come out a little bit more as the beer makes the transition into the aftertaste. You just feel this dark roasted bitterness just building and then smoothing out. It's really nicely done, actually. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. There's a little bit of earthy hop character at the very back sides of the tongue there, and you'll feel a little oily bubble at the very front of your tongue, and that's where you're getting some of the fruity esters coming out of this beer. A little bit of a kind of it's actually more of a figgy flavour, despite what you pick up in the aroma. I think it's more figs than more kind of smooth, more mild fig flavour, rather than being the very sharp sort of plummy or raisin aromas or flavours you're getting out of this one. Yeah, really quite beautifully done, I have to say. Everything just blends together in this beer really well. Around the edges of the tongue on this one, it is a very smooth hop character, a very smooth, slightly earthy character around the edge of the tongue there. Maybe a little hint of kind of grassy flavours, but otherwise very smooth. There is a definite earthy kind of presence to this, and you can also pick up a little bit of spice from that. In the aftertaste, you'll also pick up a little bit of spice from the cereal elements of this German rye bread. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on in here, and I think there's some kind of woody or nutty aromas or flavours to this beer as well. There's so much going on in it, so just take a bit of time when you're actually tasting it and pick out all the different parts of the flavour. Yeah, I'm noticing that the malt, the caramel and the treacle flavours in this one are kind of building as you drink this beer, so just you'll have a few sips of it before you actually properly think about the flavour, and you'll just get a nice big building of this malt base, and your mouth of course will adjust to the flavour of the beer too. But there's not much more that can be said for this one apart from that it is absolutely beautiful. The flavours, the caramel and the treacle flavours in this one are a little bit more subtle in comparison with other Doppelbocks, but they blend together very well with that German rye bread malt base in there. A little bit of nutty flavour, a little bit of woodiness, and a nice earthy hop character around the edge of your tongue, and you do have just a little bit of a figgy fruit flavour in there too. But it's an absolutely beautiful beer, and you're not going to go wrong with this one. I can see why it's rated as the best Doppelbock in the world. There's so much going on in this one, and it's just beautifully done. In terms of the mouthfeel of this, I would say it is quite full-bodied. It's very smooth though. You've got a nice smooth carbonation to it, but there's a little bit of a syrupy stickiness to it, which is always nice from a Doppelbock, and that helps bring out these nice kind of darker roasted caramel malts, like I say. But it's huge malty mouthfeel, as you would expect with it. There's a little bit of dry roasted character that comes out in the aftertaste, and it's more a kind of roasted treacly caramel flavour you're getting, but there's also a little bit of a juicy character from the figgy red fruits, and a wee bit of hoppy dryness around the edges of your tongue there. But overall, like I say, an absolutely beautiful world-class beer. I can see why it's the top Doppelbock on Rate Beer and BeerAdvocate.com, so definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. But anyway, been very cool to return to Privatbrauerei Ayinger from Aying in Germany. Hopefully I can review a few more of their beers, because they all are rated pretty highly, but it's been very cool to finally get around to reviewing the Celebrator Doppelbock for you, the best Doppelbock in the world apparently. This will be my last review that you'll see, that was filmed in Scotland actually, so by the time my next review will be my first Swedish one. These are filmed a little bit in advance, so I hope you've enjoyed this German mini-series and that you enjoy the Swedish reviews that I'm about to start doing for you. I want to thank you again for the support of the channel. Always cool to hear all your comments and everything like this, but I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As always, let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it before. Always interesting to read them. Like my Facebook page, add me as a friend on Untappd, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Until my next beer review, which will be a Swedish one, I want to thank you again for your support, and I will catch you soon. Slanje for now.